Happy Eid-el-Fitr to our Muslim brothers and sisters out there. We are still celebrating you. Hence, the federal government declared today, Tuesday, a public holiday, just to say kudos to you all that have been able to conclude Ramadan fast successfully. I hope the lessons learned from Ramadan will go a long way with you to the end of the year, even beyond. Having said that, on International Forum today, we're taking a look at what is still going on between Russia and, of course, Ukraine. But this time around, we're going to zoom in into the energy crisis that may be brewing in Europe if the situation is not well handled. Don't forget that Russia issued a warning that U.S. and its allies, they shouldn't supply weapons to Ukraine, but of course they did supply weapons to Ukraine, and that led to the sinking of a vital ship in Russia. And Russia went all ballistic, hammering, shelling Ukraine, and of course threatening UK, threatening France, because a few days ago, was it yesterday, and the Russia state-owned TV, they did a simulation of how Russia will nuke some major cities in Europe. Yeah, a simulation that will take only 200 seconds, and 3 major cities and all of Europe will fall if it gets to that. But the question now is, has it got into that? What about the news of Poland defying the threat of Russia and supplying weapons to Ukraine? And of course, Russia retaliation chose to block the gas supply to Poland. And even Europe, they are divided on whether to ban Russian energy supply vis-a-vis gas. All these and more we'll take a look at on today's installment of International Forum. With me here in the studio, he is a vibrant youth, a political analyst, political affairs commentator, both local and international politics is well grounded. Join me to welcome Etiosa Igibo. Welcome to International Forum. I appreciate you coming, Etiosa.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, viewers.
Right. Before we dive into the energy crisis, let's take kind of an overview of what really transpired between Ukraine and Russia. Nobody ever expected that Ukraine will be able to hold on to theirs till this particular moment. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, it's always never an easy task for people to come into a home. I want to take over a particular territory when you understand it better. I think that aspect of assuming that the war has started, and for some reasons nobody felt that Ukraine will hold on for X, Y, Z. I mean, the damage that has been caused to Ukraine is unbelievable. You know, the holding on when they talked about military tactics and special operations, according to the Russians. Perhaps they wanted to go in and cause damage, inflict enough damage, come back and try to walk around the territories that they want to protect, which I think is what they are doing. So to me, they seem to count the numbers of the death of the Russian military, but they never talked about the losses by the Ukrainians. So if the war has been any good for both sides or those that are pushing it, I don't think they bite in the economic aspect, and perhaps the rise in energy prices, you know, as well as the aspect of supplying arms and the number of refugees that has left Ukraine would have been increasing. So everybody's feeling the pinch of the war. And the aspect of holding on, I mean, when the Russians pulled back, there were mass graves. All these are questions that can never be answered. Because, I mean, the Western authority talked about war crimes. They talked about holding Russians accountable, Russians. They can't do that because they cannot hold them accountable. Because you cannot just hold them accountable. Similar thing happened during the war in other countries. Nobody perhaps spoke about war crimes. Yeah. In Iraq, many people died, many civilians died. Nobody mentioned about war crimes. I think on the social media and the media war, which is a very strong tactic, it has worked in 2015 against former President Goodluck Jonathan. I think the West is doing really well in that aspect. But when it comes to the issue of energy, and the price hike, both in Europe and America, we'll see how long people will hold on to before they start to revolt against the very leaders that have stood up for the conflict. that provoke military action and not diplomatic approach.
All right, now if you take a look at the situation, Russia dealt, a series of blows on Ukraine. Of course, it sounded a very strong warning to U.S., their allies, NATO, that we want not to supply weapons to Ukraine. But it's like Poland, most especially, is defiling that threat, supplying sophisticated weapons to Ukraine. NATO also is like doing the same thing. U.S. also providing intel to the Ukrainians on how to really fend off the fiendish attack of Russia and vis-a-vis the sinking of a Russian ship in the Black Sea. Take it up from there. How do you feel that Russia will react to this?
Well, you can see that this particular warfare has been very systematic. I remember when I came here some time ago, we talked about the issues of wanting peace talk.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians just wanted to use that tactics to regroup and replan strategy. As much as they are doing that, believe it or not, the Russians will be doing the same. Like, for example, the Black ship that was sank in the Black Sea.
Yeah.
It's not particularly clear to the what actually happened. They claim it was fire on board the vessel. The Ukrainians said, well, we shut it down. But at the same time, we have seen after the visit of the United Nations envoy, there was a strike inside Kiev.
Kiev, yeah.
Which means that the missile system can go as far as reaching anywhere. If the target was to force a regime change and to do anything with the territory of not applying that historic relationship between Russia and Ukraine, I believe more damage would have been done by now. I have not seen the deployment of the B-52 bombs that just carpet bomb me erratically. I have not seen the use of that yet. It's still more of precision bombings, trying to limit casualties with civilians, which obviously is inevitable. And at the end of the day, the more the arms are going in, and Poland doing what they need to do, perhaps as a sovereign nation, they have every right. It could be for interest going forward, because before you go to war, there's always this conviction for or against. Some people may believe that after Ukraine, you are next. So if you don't contribute now, you may become the next target. Some people might believe, well, we have a relationship with them. We don't think we will ever have a problem with them. They are reluctant. For me, personally, personal opinion, all the wars that have been set up and engaged with in the Asia-Pacific region, which is Eurasia, going all the way to the Far East, like in Afghanistan, Iraq, and whatnot, none of those wars has been a clear-cut victory. They've left devastation. Whether the Americans was present in Iraq, in Afghanistan for 20 years, today the will of the Taliban still took over as a governing body of that country.
Afghanistan, yeah. And
some people were saying the other day when the Americans talked about human rights and not wanting to hurt the civilians, they're already hurting the civilians in America from price hike of energy, consumption and prices, and also hurting the citizens of Afghanistan from the fact that the assets of the Afghan government has been frozen. I think they have a couple of billions of dollars frozen. So which means the government officials and the Taliban who has taken over may not suffer as much as the civilian. So if you look at all these aspects, you really wonder who on what and who is gaining and who is losing. From what I see in my own personal view, I think those that are supplying arms to create war and talk about liberation and war that they never won outrightly. Even when they run an election and they have a democratically elected government like in Afghanistan, they still end up being overthrown like a piece of chicken or something so funny. And at the end, it looks as if those who sold arms for the war are the biggest benefactor. So this war game, and like with Ukraine, all these arms that they are getting from the US and other European countries, some of them might be kind of a support program to support Ukraine, but 90% of those arms are more like in credit.
In credit?
They still have to pay for it later.
So one way or the other, they're going to pay for those arms given to them by these countries?
Certainly. I mean, that is why diplomacy is the best. And these are not things that is happening overnight. If we must speak and stand by the truth, these are things that have been ongoing for a very long time.
Okay.
What is good for the goose is good for the gender. If nobody can militarize any country around the United States region or the North America, for example, Cuba, I don't see the need why you should expand NATO to the east, going into Ukraine.
All right. Now, pundits are saying that Russia hasn't won any war. At first, they tried against Afghanistan, it backfired. Georgia, the story isn't different. They're saying that right now, the war against Ukraine, there will just be no victor, no vanquish. It's just to, like, raise dust, and that will just be it. What do you feel about this?
Well, no country has ever gone into war and won the war. Like I said, one of the recent times you saw people holding on to military aircraft when the U.S. was evacuating the last personnel, and the Afghan citizens were falling off the plane because they needed to get out of Afghanistan because they believed there would be a reprisal from the Taliban. Trust me, even if the whole thing was kind of mellowed down, there were still a lot of reprisals from the Taliban, some people who would have been extrajudicially executed for the fact that they supported the U.S. invasion. It's almost like they've joined the superpower to invade them. They've captured the central government. They've set up a government. These people are known now. For 20 years, they are comfortable that this has come to stay, and all of a sudden, it's like a mirage, a smoke screen. And then there's trouble, and the people runs into several challenges, and at the end of the day, they are facing the wrath of their consequences of supporting the idea. So when the U.S. went to, Somalia, between you and I, they still did not win. That was how a movie called The Black Hawk Down was, created, and the movie was made on that note. So to me, I think the basic reasons why these things are really happening is because this arm that has been produced now, that has been supplied, has to be sold. The only point and only time at which you sell them is when there's war. And when there's no war, you will not sell them. When people has invested money into producing special ammunitions or perhaps looking at possibility of defending yourself, and you see times without number in the last 15, 20 years, it's always been offensive war type chanting. And then you go into those wars, the reasons of going to those wars become a complete and open lie. Nobody goes back to history to talk about it. You close that door, you move into a new one with the same system and the same tactics. To me, I don't know where it's ever going to stop. So I just feel that this whole war game, those that are selling the arms and the ones that benefit, because the reality of what has happened in Ukraine, you will never know because of the fact that opposition media, media that has alternative views has been shut down. If you knew you were winning the war, for people not to have an alternative view in the Western Europe or the Western world, you would not bother about who is reporting a different story. So only God knows what the Ukrainians has faced, and the more you strike targets inside Russia, the more they increase the bombardment of these people. And maybe perhaps when they go after Zelensky, people will know that every part of this world is not untouchable.
All right. Now, are you now saying that the war Russia is fighting right now against Ukraine is a war that will end in futility, that there will be no end to this war, there will be no result, or the aim of Russia will be thwarted in this war?
Yeah, well, put it this way. Wars take different strategic approach to executing plans. If a particular country like Russia takes a steps and is not working, they retreat. Trust me, they are retreating with a different plan. Countries that has the capacity to develop modern-day technology and warfare machines cannot be undermined. If you're using radar, they use radar. If you're using cluster bombs, they're using it. If you're using supersonic bombs, they're using it. If you're using laser and satellite-guided missiles, they have the capacity to build it. It's just a case of which type of warfare they apply. As I can see on some of the media platforms, some of the Russian fleets on the surface ships has been bombed. This way they will go more into using submarines and things like that. And in terms of targeting the Ukrainian military system, they may end up going after those facilities. Where you bring in these arms from Europe and America, they can decide to destroy them. And at the end of the day, they can decide to destroy command centers that operate the drones. These are not things that is elusive. They are there. They know where they are. But because of the fact that the war has to be engaged in an international way, whereby that international thing is just preached, but the reality is that people get raped, even in Ukraine. There was a claim that certain Russian military guys raped some people in Ukraine. And these are things that you may never have to perhaps air on TV and media where people can hear the aftermath of war can create. To me, I don't think that Russia's quest has not paid off for them to an extent. But I just feel that Ukraine shouldn't be going into a war game with Russia, because at the end of the day, they've lived together since the so-called coup of removing the previous president.
Yeah.
They have Zelensky now. They have a process of re-electing their leaders. I think they should just work on those things and build a country that will be good for everybody. The idea of somebody telling you from outside that you should fight war is only as good until the war gets to you. By the time you feel that Russia's pushed to the war, for instance, and they start to be more determined to go after those that they feel is creating a problem, maybe that way they may have everything. So this is a proxy war, there's no doubt. The US says China don't join Russia. Trust me, China they're already joining Russia secretly. Other European countries has come up to do X, Y, Z. If it was a war that the US can fight on their own, being the ringleader of all this idea of NATO, they probably shouldn't have been begging and asking other allied countries to join to justify and make certain people look bad. So the truth of the matter is that the price hike in Europe, the sufferings of the Europeans, the sufferings of the Americans will not get to the table of the leaders of this government, of these countries who are constituting this war. And most of them have interest in these manufacturing companies that produce these weapons. So it's just unfortunate. And the issue of saying whether this or that wins, to me, I don't think there's a particular victor or vanquish, but I think Russia will do more damage than you can imagine, as much as Ukraine can do to them.
Oh, so they're saying that it's all about damage and inflicting injury. Some of the injury will just be irreparable for them to have that Donbass region. Is that what this war is all about?
Because think about it, when you have runways of fly planes and land planes, whether they're unmanned drones or F-16s and F-35s, these are things that is visible. That, spy planes can go around having a look and they can come and bomb the whole runways, and you can't fly your drones anymore. I remember during the First or Second World War, when the British developed the Harrier jets, the jets that has the capacity to take off and land vertically, it was because the runways were damaged at some point. Warehouses where arms are kept, warehouses where command centers are kept. These are not things that is evasive. They can be, targeted from very far. So to me, I think the idea of the war has been bad. It has even affected people in Africa. The cost of living has gone up. People are hungry just because the Russian energy thing has. So at every point, the desires to go to war and the benefit of the different people on the different cadre differs. For the common man, they don't want war because they don't want price hike things to go up. The price of diesel has jumped from 200 or something naira to 650 naira. The common man is paying that price. In Europe, the price of consumption of gas has gone up. This does not affect those who are spending public money in government. Because human beings are very self-centered. The minute it doesn't affect them, they don't care. They'll just keep pushing it, using all the media apparatus, because they themselves and their allies own those media apparatus. So whether you're against it, they will force you to accept those things. So I think the war is just baseless. And those people that are benefiting from supplying arms and getting these people to do X, Y, Z, they are the one that is the biggest benefactor. And Russia going to be dragged into the war. Perhaps maybe Putin may have responded and reacted whatever way he felt was good for him. And Zelensky feels the need to defend his people. I'm very certain that with hindsight, if he was given a second chance, I don't think Zelensky will go that far.
He'll go that far. All right, if you take a look at what is really happening right now, according to reports, Russia is beginning to target some member of parliament in UK that do have one or two businesses in Russia after being, slammed so much with sanctions by the UK because Boris Johnson was so vocal about it. Now, with that move by Russia, I don't think it's going to aggravate the allies of NATO to really do more to punish Russia.
Well, the thing is, how do you come up with an understanding that certain members of the parliament or people, for example, Joe Biden's son has a lot of business in Russia, that they have business with these people, you also demonize and say Putin is bad, or the Russians are bad. You do business with them. You've been making money doing business with them. What has changed so dramatically that cannot be settled on a round table? If the UK parliamentarians are involved in businesses in Russia, and at the same time are making it public in the UK, or the Western country believe that Russia is a no-go area, that brings about a question mark on their personality. So this whole war game, I don't understand. Like I said, on the different cadre, there are different interests. The people in government and their allies or the business world who does a certain particular thing, when you go online and you surf the web more, automatically, if Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, has bought Twitter, war games are played on Twitter. More people are subject to go onto Twitter and use it. By so doing, you're increasing his pocket. He's getting more money because of the data usage and things like that, pay per click. So on the aspect of those supplying arms is the same. On the aspect of those that are in government, no U.S. president has come and gone and remained poor. No UK Prime Minister has sat on that seat and left and remained poor. They are all multi-millionaire from holding those positions. These are the kind of word games and things they do that makes them become that rich. So to me, I just think it's selfish on the Western path. No matter what they say, they are benefiting from it. It is the citizens, the innocent citizens in America, the innocent citizens in Ukraine, the innocent citizens in Europe, the innocent citizens in Africa that is suffering the brunt of their myopic and systematic lies of wanting to create wars all in the name of trying to demonize people you do business with.
All right, now let's come to the energy situation right now. It took quite a while for Russia to take a decision on Poland, saying that they're going to cut off energy supply vis-a-vis gas to Poland, and right now Europe is divided on whether to ban Russian energy supply. That's on one hand. On the other hand, Russia is planning on how to ban energy supply to some countries in Europe. How do you think all this will pan out?
Well, the idea of energy is something that is needed by the Europeans. If you've ever lived in Europe and gone from Germany towards the east, you understand that England and Spain and these countries are less colder than Germany and the rest, outside the creation of God and certain, earth movement that has created a shade for the European countries going towards the west. But on the eastern bloc, it's extremely cold. And as much as Russians want to do business, Russia has never been on the good books of the Westerners. They've always had problems with America and England for many years. At some point, they feel they need to close ranks and stop fighting and exchange what they call do bilateral relationship of doing business together. If you have started that, what now happened all of a sudden while you're now destroying those things? Whenever there's an economic growth or negative economic growth, for example, when fear was scarce the other day, marketers will hike the price. They will make extra more money as to what amount of money they should make. They take advantage of it. So by whatever that is happening in Europe is happening now, they are making money from arms sales. But the only thing is because God is the highest and the provider of, protector of lives and provides life and takes it away. If not, these people will want to live forever. So no matter what you earn, no matter how rich you become, no matter how powerful you become, the day you go down with nothing, just like you came. So for some people, that is where religion and beliefs is supposed to help guide us as people. But fortunately, these people in the Western countries, most of them don't believe in such thing because they have a power block behind them that will want something and it needs to be done. So sometimes it's hard to place these things, whereby whenever there's conflict, the common man will always suffer. These guys have stashed up enough dollars, millions of dollars to live on till the day they go down, generations after generation. If you're buying sugar for $1 and the sugar goes to $1,000, they can afford it. Those that suffers it is the common man. So the issue of energy supply, if Russia can always keep going at them on different levels of sanction, they talked about ruble as much as they want to trade, but at the same time, they also have businesses with the East. Because you cannot tell me about, oh, well, when Russia is isolated from Europe, they go more to the East, which means whatever infrastructure they need to build to the East, there will be enough consumption to earn as much money as they earn dealing with Europe. So you don't want that to happen on one end, but on the other end, it's just all a game. It's a game that they're playing with people's lives. But you see, personally, I believe God created heaven and earth. And for some way, somehow, they always have a way to pay the price. No matter what they do, no matter when they sit in the power, and the power that they're sitting on expects them to behave in a certain way, they always end up, when they are dead, they die with nothing. So as much as former presidents in the US and all these people went to war and ignore all that has happened, at the same time, they still end up with hindsight, assuming or thinking if they never did so. So war games it's never been a good thing, and it is those that supplies
The weapon.
ammunitions and the weapons that ends up becoming the biggest beneficiary. And after the war goes down and the war stops now, there will be a lot of elements within Ukraine that will have access to arms. Just like when the civil war happened in this country, after the war, people took arms and armed robbery started. There will be so much aftermath of killings and unreasonable actions from the people and citizens over the next decade or so, just because of this senseless war. So to me, the energy thing is one thing. They can tell you that we're not dependent on it, X, Y, Z. They are dependent on the oil, the Russian oil and the gas. And it is big. If Russia decides to shut it all down today, I can tell you the code can kill more people than any bullet can kill.
We'll come to that. If you just joined us, this is International Forum. We're taking a look at the Ukraine-Russian war energy crisis in Europe, because right now it is erupting. Some are saying it is going to be having a ripple effect globally. What do you think is the price of gas right now per kilogram across Europe, across the US, across Africa, even in Nigeria, our own country? Is that what is really affecting the inflation when you talk about energy supply globally, because of what Russia and Ukraine, they are like undergoing? All these and more we'll take a look at after this break. Don't go away, because we want to really dive down into each aspect of it. Don't forget that Europe is now divided to ban oil, ban Russian energy, or they should continue with it despite the war with Ukraine. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum, taking a look at various events taking place globally, and it's all about the Russia-Ukraine war, energy crisis in Europe. Some of the opinion that with what is happening right now, Russia do have an edge. What do you feel about this?
Well, from the first time of engagements, aspect to do with the war, outside the technicalities and using advanced weapon systems, they've always had an edge. Because Russia is a massive country by landmass, a lot bigger than the US. I don't think they've even deployed 10% of their military might.
10% of the military might?
Definitely.
And Ukraine is bleeding already?
Wars can go on for so long. Ukraine should not be subjected or misled to be getting into war that is of no benefit to them. Because the fact that the pipelines are built across Ukraine, they have royalties that is paid back to them as a country to constantly exist. Maybe we should talk about the issue of energy supply and business interest. The minute the US is pushing the Europeans to stop buying Russian gas, they are telling them to buy their very expensive US LNG. How do you compromise that? How do you balance that books? It's always about give and take. There's this complaint by US analysts about how China has become so powerful. There have been complaints about allowing China and Russia to become a rich economy. I mean, come on, I thought life is about progressive engagements. If you're having bilateral relationship with people or different countries, it's about you progress and I progress from sharing a relationship. So what is the case of people coming up to share certain ideas that perhaps tells us the mindset of these people? You know, I mean, if you go back to history, the warmongers and the issue of slave trade, the Africans never really enjoyed or benefited as much as they appears to be when they came with the so-called colonialism. So that mentality is still with them. But like I said before, it is because God is God. That is why everybody that lives do not live forever. If not for that, there would have been more atrocities committed by certain people and mindsets. Since the death of Adolf Hitler, that is still referred back today, I don't think they've been a second Adolf Hitler. It took God to take him away in order for Eastern Germany to have peace with regards to the Cold War in those days. But they keep replicating this thing through different means, and they just believe that everybody is stupid. I am not against their position. Perhaps it is what you have or what you wish for that you do in life. As much as the populations and the world are suffering from their unnecessary war, you cannot fail in a country going into war and you've not succeeded in making sure that what you've done here has brought about a complete change. Let us assume the Taliban did not agree that women should continue to go to school today. They were taking them back to the old medieval era of saying that we don't want to see women outside or women walk alone. But the Western countries went there, liberated the people. After 20 years, gave them back to these people to slaughter. Just like how they were having issues with Gaddafi, certain generals would run away to the West. They would work with them in alliance, bring them back to Gaddafi, commit Gaddafi to commit an offense, and sometimes execute these people, and they turn around and tell them Gaddafi is bad. You are aiding and abetting these things on what they call joint enterprise. And at the same time, you are standing on the side because you think you're speaking to gullible congregations and population who are running day to day to make ends meet and put food on the table. So like I said, the benefits is on different cater. But at the end of the day, I think the common man suffers the most brunt. The Russian state and the Western countries have been in battles over years. They've gotten to a point, they got tired of their disagreements and decided to come together. If they are quarreling now and there's wars and benefits or whatnot going on, because you don't supply arms either. You're not earning a dime from it, neither is the citizens of Americans earning a dime from it. Neither are the citizens of Europeans earning a dime. Where they are employed by this company, they may be able to hire more people, but compared to the population, it's just 0.00 of a fraction of those that will benefit from direct supply of those arms. So to me, I just think the world is a world of lie, it's born out of lie. Because when you look at the way they use media to constantly pump information, and people are bound to understand that, and the more the merrier, the more people on one side, those are those who believe the idea of what they are saying is right. Just like if you come to Africa, politicians keep promising you that if you vote me in, they will do X, Y, Z.
X, Y, Z,
if you vote me in, they will do this and do that. If you vote me in, we'll create 200 jobs, 200,000 jobs. And at the end of the day, you get engaged with that particular individual. He ends up not doing what he promises he can do. And the next man comes and starts with the same slogan. For some reason, why did these people keep falling for the same prank all the time? That is the questions we really need to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
These things are practical and it's right on our doorsteps. Yet people are unable to phantom to get it because they're just pushing buttons, financial, economic buttons, currency stuff, the inflation rates, to tighten grips and check the reactions and end up getting you so busy enough not to be bothered with what they're interested in. And at the same time, when two elephants fight, the grass is suffer. The citizens of Ukraine, innocent people that have died, is not only Russia, is not only to blame for those things. You can't blame only Putin for those things. Those that are supporting the war, from the US to the British and the Western countries, even Zelensky himself, they all should be responsible for those things that has happened. Because if you give the citizens option, they will opt from going to war. They don't want war. They are living in a beautiful country. Look at how beautiful Ukraine is. Even the places you have seen. All of a sudden, you have armed men all over the place, snipers all over the place. They fire, then radar gets them information that there are people there. They come and drop a Boston bomb there, kill innocent people who have nothing to do with the war, and then you want to say that the blame is with one person or with one particular country? Of course not. And China is sitting there and believing that after Russia, China is next. Because there's this quest of saying these people have become rich. If they have become rich, and perhaps you have bilateral relationship, why is this such a problem for other people to do well? I thought you, as a father of the world, you want your children to grow and do well. So when you see the growth and the progressive economic gains and the people are lifted out of poverty, you start to have a problem with it. That is the way I see the Westerners, especially the United States government. I don't know why it is like that. I know not all of them share the same view.
The same view.
A particular person comes to power. Donald Trump may be the guy that nobody really likes. But by the time he was in power, he was able to manage his guys and even visited North Korea. Nobody thought that North Korea was everybody thought it was a no-go area. But he went there, he was with the president, diplomacy is always the best. But all of a sudden...
But some call that showmanship. That's what they called it then.
No, but it's a showmanship because they themselves, who are affiliated with the companies that produce arms, need to sell their arms. So with Trump behaving that way, though he has his flaws, which kind of led to why, the division in America between the ethnic groups didn't help him. He shouldn't have been doing that. He would have won his second term. If Trump was then, I don't think there would be war in Ukraine. He went to North Korea. He had a conversation with the North Korean president. As much as they have their own mindset, he was able to kind of die down tension. That is what leadership is all about. Not trying to demonize this. You are feeling the war. You're just as guilty as the Russians. Or you're as guilty as Putin. So it should be a show of shame to the Western countries, up to the father of the world, the United States, economically, militarily, ideologically, the US is one of the best countries in terms of civilization. How do you now get all your allies together to display this show of shame when you know that war is never a good thing?
All right.
You know, you forget about what had just happened. You start a new, maybe after Russia, you go to China. After China, you go to India. After India, you come back to yourself, and maybe every day, everybody else is nowhere to be found. We no longer exist.
All right. Now, well, in course of your analysis, you mentioned something about Europe, you know, suffering right now because of what is happening in between Russia and Ukraine. We'll talk about energy crisis. You've traveled far and wide in Europe and, of course, to the Americas. But from your own assessment, do they have an alternative energy source apart from Russia? What if we just used to pull the plug? What then?
Yes, of course they do. They have an alternative energy source. You see, there are ways you work with a Westerner. I mean, I think it's foreign policy. That is the only aspect with the position of the West. Their foreign policy. You must keep your enemies or your likely challenges down to a level. And they are doing that quite well. From that angle, you can understand why they are doing it. But on the other aspect, the bullwhip effect of that action is the killings of innocent citizens. Then when you talk about the issue of alternative to the energy supply, we have a lot of gas in Africa. Nigeria in particular. Nigeria can afford to sustain and augment the shortfall from the Russian oil and gas. But the problem they've had with Africa is that they believe that they've put in so much into doing bilateral relationship and transactions and deals with Nigeria, for instance, or Angola. But they see that those leaders of this country end up stealing the same money that they do business with their people, steal it back to the Western countries. And they physically don't see new development in those countries. That is why the West, to an extent, even as much as we disagree with some of the things they do, they also make sense in another way. We say, look, we do business with you, we benefit a lot more than you, but we believe from what you get is enough to make your country a first world country. But you can also tie it to us, and our own political interest should be your interest. Those are other aspects. When they see the corruption level was so bad, at some point, they said they are not corrupt, but they allow the leaders to steal the money and take into the systems in the West. By the time they push a petition to question the character of the person in power who has taken those money, the money is automatically seized in this country. It's like a law of diminishing return. So you give them with one hand, you take with 10 hands, then the money comes back to you and you sit on the money. So in other words, it means like when you eat with the devil, you eat with a long spoon. That is that our leaders in this country needs to use their number 6. Whatever money that you're getting trading with the US and Europe and all these people is good enough to develop your people. You know, let the US and the Europeans and the whatnot be dependent on the Nigerian oil and gas. When you're able to work with them, a lot of investment will come, a lot of job creation will come. Automatically, insecurity will die a natural death.
All right, now do you see Europe exploiting this alternative because of this war going on between Russia and Ukraine?
They already are exploiting it. I mean, there's a pipeline that's going through the North Africa, which is coming out of Nigeria. I think what they need to strengthen, or what Nigerian leaders need to know, is that no matter the amount of money you have and keep in your bank or in underground cellars or whatnot, you will die and leave it one day. It's better to use those money to develop and build train lines, just like the Honorable Minister is building now. Build train lines for easy communication, easy movement from commuting from one point to the other. If you're going to Yankari Game Reserve on a holiday to Bauchi, you should be able to get on a train from Benin City to Bauchi without fear of being attacked. When you spend your money to make good roads, create waterway transportation, encourage companies to come and have good power supply, have good refineries, you see that Nigeria will probably be one of the best countries in the world. As much as we are the most populous country in Africa, we have human capacity, we have intelligent people here who can key in with the Western inflow of dollars to help build this country. That idea of keeping them poor, you have money when you need them, you throw them corn, it's going to get to a point, that stuff will be nothing to nobody anymore. People are finding other means and other alternative ways. You look at what they talk about, Yahoo Plus and things like that, to get money and live for a short time or whatever, if it is something that we should go by. So anything that has an advantage has a disadvantage. Anything that you do to the benefit of your people also have an advantage. So if the Europeans are pulling out of Russia. Automatically, they're already coming to Nigeria. So this money that is coming in, if we're realistic with ourselves, we can behave like Rwanda. Look at the president of Rwanda, how he has changed the fortunes of this country. But he didn't do it alone. The citizen has to join him, understand the idea, the workforce, to make sure you build a viable country. Look at Abuja, for instance. Look at the road network. Let us imagine having such road network all across Nigeria. You see that Nigerians will not even listen or look at you in government.
Okay, now if you take a look at the position of the rubble, you said it a while ago, some pointed like saying that since the advent of this war, the rebels talking about the Russian currency is waxing stronger because right now it's like they're having control of their own resources and currency. What do you feel about that?
Well, just like as I told you before now, the war games in Ukraine, when they negotiate to say ceasefire, is a different strategy. You are planning, they are planning. If anybody is suffering any casualties, you walk away around your next military approach. The ruble has many ways they can strengthen the ruble because God has blessed Russia with natural resources. And that is the envy from the West. Because Russia is so big, they have so much natural resources. Just because the pipeline was originally built and attracted to the West doesn't mean the East do not need them. The East can buy whatever Europe is buying, but the thing is they need time to build the pipelines going to that direction, which means they need the resources to invest in this infrastructure, which the Russian president nicely said the other day that the ruble is doing well, we have enough money to build the infrastructure going east. Because these people are not involved in the Western stuff. As much as you want to embrace the Western culture and that way engage with them business-wise, if it becomes difficult, it will only take some time for them to earn their money going east. So the issue of the ruble, there are means and different ways and strategy to strengthen it. Because you're not talking about a small country you would just come and sit on or dictator. You're talking about Russian Federation, the world's second largest army in the world, second most strongest country militarily. How much are you going to destroy this country for? How many years are you going to fight them before you find the total collapse of those countries? Knowing fully well that as big as China, who has one of the largest economies in the world, is behind them. India is not telling you that they are for or against them. There are so many other countries who shares their view may not be bold enough to speak. But at the same time, I think the bold effect of this whole idea will affect the dollar more than it's affected the ruble.
In what terms?
Because the dollar is a world currency. If it needs to use the dollar to buy products or buy crude oil, you have to pay for them to print it for you. So the minute you start letting these people know that they don't need to rely on your currency because you will just freeze this asset at will, they will work on alternative means, and that way they will not pay you more money to produce the dollars for them.
And I'm not saying that this war is making the dollars to be weak. Globally.
Definitely in time, it's going to get weaker because people are watching. You will not have a unilateral economy anymore. You have a multipolar economy whereby your currency speaks for yourself. If anybody wants to do business with you, it's your currency versus theirs. It used to be like that. The lire in Italy, before they had the euros, they used to have different currency, the Dutch mark.
True.
You know, so if they want to take it back to that way, it's fine. Russian president and these people say, we've always been through sanctions and hard times. We are used to it. So whatever you do, you're wasting your time. So the rubles will never crash to that extent whereby they feel the minute you bring in smart brains, and most of these smart brains were trained in the Western countries as well, and they balance the books, you see that over time, the ruble will pick back up because God has blessed them with natural mineral. Nigeria would have been a forgotten state today if not for the fact that we're blessed with resources. We have lots of gold and diamond. Look at Zamfara. All those places are blessed. So Nigeria, there's a need for the country to be a national country, a state that is national, because we have so much in abundance. That can go around, and yet the rich man will still be rich. The wealthy guy will still be wealthy, and you have a country where people are submissive to you without doing anything drastic.
All right, before we call it a wrap right now on this show for what is really going on between Russia and, of course, Ukraine, the world is affected both positively and negatively. The president of Turkey tried to really broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. It failed. And, of course, Guterres, the UN representative, the secretary of the UN, you can liken him to the head of the UN if you don't want to do that, who came to Kiev, tried to broker peace. He said he just can't see a peace in sight right now. How do you think this war will be concluded? Will it be peace at the end of the tunnel, or is it going to lead to the dissolution of nations?
Well, the UN may have more relevance if they relocate the building of the UN to one African country, or maybe another more centralized, independent country like Switzerland. The UN is under the watch of they're in the US pocket, United Nations. So the Russians will never trust those people. And I was listening to the press conference with the UN representative. He talked about the fact that Russians were the aggressors. They were invading this country. They shouldn't have done that. You cannot take a message to people who already made up their mind. As a UN rep, who when UN vetoed the war, the quest to go to war in Iraq, when the US vetoed that position, the whole UN voted against the war, the US went to the war. Where was he? So all these people would look at this aspect and say, well, what you're just coming to say is not, it doesn't make any difference. I hope, and everybody's praying for this whole war thing to stop. But these war things will stop when there's maybe logic that you and I may not understand. You know, the truth of the matter is, any country or any set of people that has problem with people growing, when they have a relationship with them, and what you build is what you have to destroy, that bothers me. How it's going to end, I don't know. Joe Biden, the president of the US, is an old man. The man is so old, he's not even running for a second tenure. If he was a younger person, maybe the US should bring like a president of maybe 40 years old president, you know, who will understand the need to live life, not those that has reached their end point. A man that is old, where he's going is closer to where he's coming from. And it brings about going into war. He's got nothing to lose. So how it's going to end? Maybe when Joe Biden leaves, and maybe when Putin leaves to an extent, or maybe Zelensky grows up to understand that it is his people that is suffering, maybe they might be able to take some kind of stance to an extent. You know, when people have so much, some people have nothing at all. You know, at the end of the day, I don't even understand the reasons why there's this war, because the whole world is feeling the pinch. You know, the Russians that you want to punish are very tough guys. At the end of the day, they are holding their ground and they will keep fighting for as long as it's taken. So I think for me, if more effort comes into play and they find a way to resolve and settle these issues, it will be good for both the Americans, the Europeans, and the world. The world is a global village. We're all interconnected. So to point the blame at the Russian president who says, well, this is the red line for me, what you could not take is hypocritical. And banning other media platforms for people not to know the truth, it's only a matter of time. The truth can be hidden, but it used to come out.
Wow, only a matter of time. The truth can be hidden, but it will still come out, because right now they don't even know the blue line, they don't even know the red line. But like saying that the war is sense, that's what they're saying. Look, the war is a must. Russia is talking tough, Zelensky is talking tough, nature is trying to say you are on the right path. But energy crisis is looming right now in Europe because of the high cost of energy supply in the US. Also, is telling on them in the US. In Africa, is telling on us. All pointing towards that direction of the Russian-Ukraine war. It's all about politics, who gets what, when, and how. Putin is not backing down, Zelensky is not backing down. Nobody seems to be giving, you know, an inclination for peace talk. How do you think all this will pan out? Igibo, thank you so much for coming on today's show. I appreciate your comment. Wonderful analysis, top notch. You said you don't know how this is going to end. Let's just keep watching and hoping that eventually it will come to an end.
Certainly. Certainly. Peace is better than war.
Yeah, peace, they say, is better than war. Next week, Tuesday, God willing, we'll see you again on International Forum. Happy Eid al-Fitr. Bye for now.